He was just a tired single dad buying groceries until a stranger looked at him and said, "I know you." What happened next changed his life forever. Before we dive into this incredible story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss our powerful, life-changing content. At a grocery store, a woman walked up to a single dad and said, "I know you." He was left stunned. I was standing in the cereal aisle, holding a box in one hand and my daughter's tiny fingers in the other. My son sat in the cart, humming softly, exhausted after a long day. That grocery store was my quiet battlefield. Every visit reminded me of everything I had lost and everything I was still fighting for. I am a single father, not by choice, by fate, by loss, by a promise I made on a hospital bed years ago. My wife had smiled weakly at me and said, "Don't let them forget love." Since then, every day of my life had been about keeping that promise alive. I worked 2 jobs. I cooked, cleaned, packed lunches, braided hair, wiped tears, and pretended I wasn't tired. Most days, I was running on hope and cheap coffee. That evening, my car was declined to check out. The line behind me grew restless. I felt my face burn with embarrassment. I removed a few items, quietly calculating what we could survive without this week. That's when I heard her voice. Soft, certain, kind. "I know you." I turned around. Stunned, a woman stood there, holding a basket of groceries, looking straight at me. I searched her face desperately, trying to place her. I failed. "I'm sorry," I said. "I don't think we've met." She smiled, not offended, not surprised. "You don't know me," she said gently, "but I know you." My heart began to race. In a world that often feels indifferent, those words carried weight. She gestured toward my children. "I've seen you here many times. Always patient, always kind, always putting them first." I swallowed hard. No one had noticed me like that before. She continued, her voice steady. 3 years ago, you sat with my mother in this very store." I frowned, trying to remember. She nodded, helping my memory. She had collapsed. Everyone else froze. "You didn't." Suddenly I remembered. An elderly woman, shaking hands, fear in her eyes. I had stayed with her until help arrived. I had missed work that day. I had been reprimanded for it, but I never regretted it. "She talked about you until the day she passed," the woman said. She said a tired man with sad eyes reminded her that humanity still exists. My throat tightened. I hadn't known my small act mattered. I hadn't known someone carried it forward. She placed her groceries on the belt beside mine. "Please," she said quietly, "let me pay." I shook my head instinctively. Pride rose up, as it often did. She leaned closer and whispered, "This isn't charity. This is gratitude." My children looked up at me. In their eyes, I saw trust. I nodded. The cashier smiled warmly, as if she understood more than she let on. Outside the store, the woman knelt to my children's level. "Your father is a good man," she said. "A very good man." After she left, I sat in my car for a long time. I didn't cry because I was sad. I cried because I felt seen. That night, I cooked dinner with lighter hands. The house felt warmer. The silence felt kinder. Weeks later, I received a call, a job offer, better hours, better pay, a chance to breathe. I often think back to that grocery store aisle, to a moment of shock that became a moment of healing. Life had taught me that pain travels quietly, but so does kindness. And sometimes, when you least expect it, love finds its way back to you through a stranger's voice saying, "I know you." Moral: every small act of kindness leaves a mark. You may never see it return, but one day, it might save you when you need it most. I didn't tell anyone about that night. Not my coworkers. Not my friends. Some moments feel too sacred to explain. Yet something inside me had shifted. I began noticing people more. The tired cashier with 4 smiles. The old man counting coins twice. The young mother rocking an empty stroller while staring into nothing. Pain has a language. Once you learn it, you hear it everywhere. A few days later, my daughter slipped her hand into mine while we walked home. "Daddy," she said softly, "are we rich now?" I smiled, surprised. Why do you think that? She looked up at me with complete certainty. Because you smile more. Her words stayed with me longer than any paycheck ever had. That weekend, we baked cookies together. The kitchen was a mess. Flour everywhere. Laughter louder than the mixer. For the first time in years, the weight on my chest loosened. I realized something important. Surviving had always been my goal, but living that had been missing. On Monday at work, I noticed a new man struggling with paperwork. His hands trembled slightly. Everyone else ignored him. I didn't. I sat beside him, helped him through it. He thanked me with eyes full of relief. Later, my supervisor pulled me aside, not to scold me, but to thank me. Leadership isn't loud, she said. It's steady. Those words felt familiar somehow, like life was echoing something back to me. That evening, at the grocery store again, I saw another father, single, tired, trying to keep a toddler from crying while counting his cash. I remembered the woman's voice. This isn't charity. I stepped forward, smiled, and said, I've been there. His shoulders dropped instantly, as if someone had lifted a burden he didn't know he was allowed to share. Walking home later, groceries balanced in one hand, my children skipping beside me, I felt something close to peace. Not because life had become easy, but because I finally understood something my wife had tried to teach me long ago. Love doesn't disappear. It changes hands. It moves quietly, and it waits for hearts brave enough to pass it on. And without realizing it, I was still keeping my promise. The next morning, the rain woke us before the alarm, soft at first, then steady. The kind of rain that makes the world feel smaller and quieter. I packed lunches while my son sat at the table, swinging his legs. My daughter watched the window. Mom liked rain, she said suddenly. I froze for half a second. Grief doesn't announce itself. It just walks back in like it owns the place. Yes, I replied carefully. She said it sounded like the sky breathing. My daughter smiled. She was right. At work, the day was heavy. Phones ringing, deadlines pressing, bills waiting at home like uninvited guests. Around noon, I checked my phone and saw a message from an unknown number. For a moment, my chest tightened. Then I opened it. It was her, the woman from the grocery store. She apologized for reaching out so suddenly. Said she had asked the cashier for my number after that night. Said she hoped that wasn't crossing a line. It didn't feel like it was. She wrote that she ran a small community program. Nothing fancy. Just meals, tutoring, quiet help for families who didn't ask but needed it. She said, "You understand tired people. We could use someone like you." I stared at the message for a long time. Me? Someone like me? I typed back slowly. I don't have much time. Her reply came quickly. None of us do. That's why it matters how we use it. That evening I showed up. Old building, flickering lights, warm soup smell drifting into the hallway, children laughing in a corner, parents sitting close together, not talking much, but not alone either. I helped serve food. I helped with homework. I listened more than I spoke. One woman cried quietly while telling me she felt invisible. I knew that feeling. I told her she wasn't. I meant it. When I got home, my son was already asleep on the couch. My daughter waited up. "How was your day, Daddy?" I hesitated, then said honestly, "It mattered." She nodded like that made perfect sense. Weeks passed, not easier, just fuller. The community center became part of our rhythm. The grocery store became less of a battlefield. One afternoon, while folding laundry, I found an old note in my wife's handwriting. I had forgotten it was there. It read, "If love ever feels heavy, it's because it's being carried alone." I sat on the floor for a long time after that, breathing, remembering, understanding something I hadn't been ready to before. That night, as I tucked my children into bed, my daughter asked, "Daddy, do you think Mom knows we're okay?" I kissed her forehead. I think she helped make it happen. Outside, the rain returned. Soft, steady, and for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel like something to survive. The rain slowed to a whisper that night. By morning, the sky had cleared as if it, too, had finished something important. I woke up before the alarm and watched my children sleep. Peaceful, safe, not because life had stopped being hard, but because we had learned how to carry it together. At the community center later that week, I noticed something quietly beautiful. People who once sat apart now shared tables. Laughter rose where silence used to live. Pain hadn't vanished, but it had been softened by understanding. The woman from the grocery store caught my eye and smiled. No words were needed. Some connections exist only to remind us who we already are. That evening, as I walked home holding my children's hands, I realized I was no longer just surviving my promise. I was living it. My wife's love had not ended. It had multiplied, passed through moments, through strangers, through small, brave acts that asked for nothing in return. I learned that kindness is never wasted, that the help you give in your weakest moment may return when you are barely standing, and that love, real love, does not disappear with loss. It becomes purpose. It becomes people. It becomes a quiet strength that carries us forward. Moral: every human heart is fighting a battle we cannot see. When you choose kindness, patience, and understanding, you may change a life, including your own. Thank you for listening to this heartfelt story. If it touched your heart, please share it, leave a comment below, and remind someone who may need to hear this today. You're never alone.